Chagrin Falls, ever since I was born, a nice, thriving arts organization, and I think that has only increased over the years. And when I was 11, my parents, so they signed me up for Saturday classes at first the Cleveland Museum of Art and then the Art Institute. Then after high school, I went to Carnegie Mellon and studied art for 4 years. So in my case, I always knew I wanted to study art. You know, everybody's aware of the 50s to some extent, but the 50s were a really, from my perspective, extremely repressive time. After World War II, the economy really boomed, and there was just all this new business that was happening. This is when the interstate highway system was built all around the country. So there were certain things that were progressive in the 50s, but there were other things that were so rigid and so constrained. For example, when I was in high school, girls were not allowed to wear pants to school, ever. Girls had to wear skirts. And hair length, boys whose hair got a certain length got sent home and couldn't come back to school until they got a haircut. My high school experience was entirely in this very constrained and very rigid setting. To me, a literary magazine like Prism was a perfect way of doing something with that some slightly nonconformist energy that I didn't really know what else to do with. And it certainly wasn't anything that would get me into trouble. Well, we had this really charismatic English teacher. Elsa Jane Carroll was her name. So great with teenagers. Not everybody has the patience or the flexibility to really connect with teenagers and guide them along a path where they'll actually learn something. And she had this idea. It sure was new to Chagrin Falls when she proposed it. And so anybody who was interested could sign on to be part of the process. And when she proposed this, it was music to my ears. This is just what I want to do. I couldn't believe how exciting this was going to be. You know, a literary magazine that was also going to include art, and I could be part of it. I just felt like it was my perfect place to play, so to speak. You know, after school, you know, we would stay and the activity for us was to go to Miss Carroll's room and work on Prism stuff. People from 7th grade through 12th grade submitted things they'd written as well as some drawings. You know, we had to decide what we were going to call it and what was the cover going to be like and what the contents were going to be. And, of course, Miss Carroll was she was a strong personality, so she was going to definitely guide us along the way. But she did give us plenty of room to participate in the decision-making process, which was really good. I remember that very specifically, that there were things where we had discussions about, well, what about this and what about that? But it was also very student-produced. And we served as an editorial board while we were in the process of reviewing student submissions. You know, it was a lot of stories and mostly just teenagers saying something funny or interesting. My sister, who was in 8th grade at the time, wrote what I still think was a really comical story about, there was 3 sisters and some crazy comedy of errors thing. And then I was reading another fictional piece by Nancy Clark, who was in 11th grade. The narrator is a girl who's talking about how polite boys are. and describing all these things that this boy bashed her in the head and this boy tripped her. And then at the end, she's made a pie for this one boy and she put ground glass in it. I reread it. It just really made me chuckle. I thought, that's really some dark humor for a high school literary magazine. So the end result really was begun and really guided by the teacher, but was really student-driven.